Have you ever felt that strange tension when you step into a room and sense everything, yet understand nothing, like the world is speaking in whispers you can't quite catch? People move, glance, hesitate, revealing more in silence than in words. I learned this the hard way. Quiet power comes from seeing what others overlook. Stay with me, and let's open that hidden layer together. As we step into this first chapter, imagine yourself standing at the threshold of a crowded room, a room that looks ordinary at first glance. Conversations hum like distant machinery, faces pass with polite half-smiles, and yet something inside you feels misaligned, as if you're hearing a sound no one else notices. A subtle tension, a quiet static beneath the surface. That moment, that strange tightening in your chest, is where real perception begins, where the world you think you understand starts to unravel. Because what you see is rarely what's happening. What you notice is often only the surface. And what you react to? Most of the time it's your own fog, not the truth in front of you. Now imagine stepping forward into that room. You think you're alert, paying attention, reading signals. But slowly, like ink spreading in water, you realize you've been moving on instinct, not insight. That your reactions are faster than your awareness. That while you try to impress, someone else, calmer, quieter, is watching with eyes that don't chase anything. Someone like the type of person the Stoics admired, unmoved, 10 steps ahead. While you try to fit in, they observe. While you rush to speak, they wait. While you get tangled in emotion, they read patterns. And suddenly, the uncomfortable truth settles in your mind. Your instincts might be the very thing keeping you blind. From here, picture this. Most people walk through life half awake. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they are chained to their own emotional storms. Anger clouds their sight. Desire stretches their expectations. Fear pulls their thoughts into narrow corners. When emotions take the wheel, perception collapses. In a heated argument, what do you remember afterward? Not the details, not the logic. You remember the burn, the sting, the rush. You remember how you felt, not what was actually said. That emotional fire devours nuance, and in that blaze, you miss everything underneath. The insecurity hidden inside someone's harsh tone, the truth concealed in their repetition, the motive embedded in their silence. This is where the Stoic path begins, not with coldness, not with suppression, but with the courage to step outside your reactions. Epictetus taught that emotions are not enemies, they are signals, but only if you are outside them, only if you observe them as a witness instead of being dragged by them. Detachment is clarity. Detachment is clean sight. Detachment is the ability to stand in the middle of a storm without becoming the storm. Now imagine walking into that same room again, but this time without the hunger to be liked or the impulse to perform. Most people misread situations, not because the world is complicated, but because they enter wanting something: approval, attention, validation, affection. When you want something from a room, the room controls you. You see only what your emotions allow. But when you want nothing, you see everything. Let's step deeper into a living example. I once watched a man walk into a gathering. He didn't rush to greet anyone. He didn't plaster a polite smile across his face. He simply observed. The way some people leaned slightly toward each other when laughing. The way another person's eyes hardened for a split second when someone else was praised. The way alliances formed not by words, but by glances. It wasn't coldness, it was clarity. a quiet clarity that radiated more presence than any loud greeting ever could. Marcus Aurelius would have called it seeing what is, without distortion. As we move deeper into this, feel how your mind resists. It wants to categorize, label, judge, decide who's right, wrong, trustworthy, admirable, irritating. But that impulse is noise. It comes from insecurity, not insight. When you learn to silence that impulse, to observe without needing to declare a verdict, something shifts. Your presence sharpens. Your perception expands. You stop interpreting everything emotionally and start seeing things as they are. And when that happens, you become mentally untouchable. At this stage, the world may misread your calm. People might say you seem distant, robotic, hard to read. Let them. The world is addicted to reaction. So anyone who refuses to react looks strange at first. But Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That discomfort you feel when you resist reacting is not a warning. It's a sign that you are breaking from the script everyone else is trapped in. You are no longer predictable. You are no longer easily provoked. You are no longer obvious. Now feel the shift inside you when you stop trying to fill silence or chase belonging. When a friend tells a story, you listen not just to their words, but to their omissions. When someone compliments you, you ask quietly what they gain from saying it. When someone mocks you, you look past the comment and into the wound that made them speak it. Observation is not paranoia. Observation is refinement. Stoic awareness sharpens perception without poisoning the heart. Let's walk into a story, one I've seen more often than I can count. A person enters a room trying to impress. They speak too fast. They laugh too loudly. They rush to respond. Another person, calm, quiet, lets the room speak first. 10 minutes later, everyone remembers the quiet one. Why? Because they were not lost in their own noise. They watched, listened, perceived. They acted on reality, not emotion. Quiet power always lasts longer than loud presence. From here, the world becomes stranger. You begin to see patterns. The same people interrupt repeatedly. The same person grows silent whenever someone else is praised. The same co-worker changes their tone, depending on who's in the room. The same friend repeats certain phrases whenever they lie. Patterns everywhere. You didn't see them before because your emotions were too loud, but now clarity cuts through everything. And this is where the lesson tightens. Detachment is not indifference. Detachment is alignment with truth. To remain calm in chaos is not to escape life, but to finally see it clearly. A lighthouse does not fear the waves. It stands because it understands them. Here's the moment everything changes. When you stop talking just to fill air, you become a mystery. When you stop reacting just to defend your ego, you become unreadable. And people fear what they cannot read. That fear becomes respect. That respect becomes leverage. And that leverage becomes quiet power. Now imagine wanting nothing from anyone, not approval, not favor, not reaction. You look people in the eye without chasing connection. You laugh only when something is truly funny. You speak only when your words have weight. You don't flinch when silence grows thick, and in that stillness, their true patterns surface, quietly, unmistakably. So the next time you enter a room, remember this. Don't rush to belong. Don't rush to judge. Don't rush to feel. Just observe. Your goal is not to know everything. Your goal is to see what others miss because they are too busy reacting. Detach from emotion. Watch without wanting. See without needing. That is how you outsmart everyone without them ever realizing you did. Moving into this second chapter, imagine catching your reflection not in a mirror, but in the quiet water of a river, distorted, honest, and impossible to ignore. Not in a recording, not in a memory, but in real time, drifting back to you through someone else's expression. A slight raising of their eyebrows, a pause that shouldn't have appeared, a softness in their reply that doesn't match your tone. It's unsettling, like seeing a shadow you didn't know you were casting, because sometimes the world reflects a version of you that you never meant to show. And that reflection is the beginning of truth. Now imagine walking through your days with a mirror pressed far too close to your face. So close that you can't see your own posture, only fragments of emotion. So close that you confuse your intention with your impact. And that's where the blindness starts. Most people don't see themselves clearly, not because they refuse to, they simply don't know how. You assume your tone is warm, but others hear urgency. You assume your confidence is visible, but your rushed words betray your anxiety. You assume your authenticity is obvious, but your forced smile reveals more than you think. You believe your emotions make sense because you feel them, but others only see the residue they leave behind. This is where the Stoics offer a rare doorway. They understood that the hardest person to read is oneself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will bubble up if you dig." But digging is uncomfortable. It means seeing the gap between your story and your behavior. It means seeing the distance between who you think you are and how you actually land in the world. And that distance can be brutal. Let's step deeper into that space. Think of all the times you believed people misjudged you. How many of those moments weren't misjudgments, but misalignment? You thought you were being assertive, but you sounded defensive. You thought you were being polite, but you sounded distant. You thought you were blending in, but you were disappearing. You thought you were being calm, but you were being unreadable. The world reads what you do, not what you intend. And most of the time, you aren't reading yourself at all. Here's where the turning point begins. The wise separate themselves from the unaware by doing something deceptively simple. They step outside their own mind. They become both actor and audience, both speaker and witness, both participant and observer. They watch themselves the way a documentarian watches a subject, not to judge, but to understand the truth beneath the performance. Stoic self-examination is not guilt. It is clarity. It is the courage to see yourself naked of excuses. Imagine this. You walk into a room, but this time you watch yourself from a few feet behind. How do you enter? How do you breathe? Do your shoulders rise slightly when someone looks at you? Do you speed up your words when explaining something? Do you laugh quickly, too quickly to avoid letting silence expose your discomfort? If you were meeting yourself for the first time, would you trust your presence? Most people never ask these questions, so the world answers for them, quietly, instinctively, continuously. People notice your hesitation before you do. They detect your uncertainty in your tone before you feel it. They catch the moments when your laughter breaks rhythm. They see the micro shifts you ignore. While you try to be liked, they assemble conclusions. A few might tell you the truth, but most won't. Not out of cruelty, but because truth is heavy, and carrying it for someone else is exhausting. Let's step even deeper. In moments of tension, who are you? Really? Do your hands fidget when disagreement arises? Do you rush to fill silence because it makes you feel exposed? Do you shrink your opinions to avoid friction? Or do you sit with discomfort long enough for clarity to arrive? These small, quiet reactions reveal far more about you than your values written on paper. These moments are your real biography. I once watched a man in a heated discussion. He wanted desperately to appear calm, but his foot tapped against the floor like a metronome. His voice tightened at each interruption. He spoke in complete sentences, but everything in his posture whispered conflict. If he could have seen himself from the outside, he would have understood why people didn't hear his words. They heard his fear. Reaction speaks louder than language. Now imagine facing yourself honestly and discovering patterns that sting. The forced smile you suddenly realize isn't genuine. The nodding you do just to escape confrontation. The quick, "it's fine" you use to hide frustration. The tension in your jaw when something offends you. The voice you lower when you're uncertain. These realizations hit hard because they reveal years, sometimes decades of unconscious performance. But here lies the blessing wrapped inside the sting. Awareness is the doorway to transformation. From here, something subtle and powerful begins to shift. You start correcting your habits, not by force, but by recognition. You lift your chin slightly when walking into a room. You slow your words by half a beat. You allow silence to exist without panicking. You stop pretending to understand when you don't. You stop agreeing when you disagree. You stop laughing when it's not funny. These changes are microscopic, invisible to most, but they change the entire energy you carry. And that energy becomes self-respect. Self-respect becomes steadiness. Steadiness becomes presence. Presence becomes quiet influence. The Stoics never asked for perfection. They asked for progress, small, intentional progress. Seneca reminded us, no person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they do not have. Applied inward, it means this. You cannot immediately become the person you want to be, but you can immediately stop being the person you no longer respect. Even 1% improvement moves mountains over time. Let's move further inward. As you observe yourself, something liberating happens. You stop needing the world to tell you who you are. You stop chasing admiration. You stop shaping your personality based on the reaction of whoever stands in front of you. You begin living from a center rather than from the edges. And people feel that without you saying a word. Your presence becomes a message. Your silence becomes a statement. Your posture becomes a declaration. And here comes the quiet paradox. When you stop trying to be noticed, you are noticed more. When you stop trying to be liked, you become more likable. When you stop performing, people stop doubting your authenticity, because authenticity isn't a performance. Authenticity is alignment. So, today, try this. Watch yourself as if you were someone else. Watch the way you walk, speak, sit, pause, respond. Don't judge, just witness, and ask softly without shame, if I met this person, would I respect them? If the answer is no, don't collapse into self-criticism. Just begin again. Begin smaller. Begin slower. Begin honestly. Because you're not here to become perfect. You're here to become intentional. And intention, carried gently and consistently, transforms everything. And once you learn to observe the world with emotional detachment and observe yourself with fearless honesty, only one question remains. How do you make others feel your presence without raising your voice? And once you learn to see yourself without flinching, the world can no longer hide its truth from you. That is where the next chapter begins. As we step into this third chapter, Imagine walking into a room where your very breath feels louder than your voice, where the air itself seems to press against your chest, not violently, just enough to make you aware of every quiet second stretching out in front of you. That moment when no one speaks, when the world holds still for just long enough that you feel an impulse rising inside you, an itch to fill the gap, to say something, anything, just to break the tension. That is where the real lesson begins. Because silence, for most people, feels like a threat. But for the few who understand it, silence is a blade. A clean, calm blade. One that doesn't wound, but reveals. Now imagine that pause again. Feel how uncomfortable it is. Feel how quickly the mind scrambles, searching for words, explanations, noise to protect itself from being truly seen. Why do we fear that stillness so much? The Stoics knew the answer long before we stumbled our way toward it. To them, silence was not emptiness, it was judgment, clarity, intention. Marcus Aurelius warned, "If it is not true, do not say it." He didn't mean to muzzle yourself. He meant to value your words enough to let them breathe. And when you let your words breathe, others must breathe with them. That's power. Quiet, steady power. Here's where the shift becomes visible. Most people treat silence like a gap that must be filled, so they fill it. With nervous laughter, with explanations that should have stayed unspoken, with sentences that fall apart as quickly as they appear. But the person who does not fear silence, the one who lets a sentence settle like dust on a still floor, that person becomes the gravity of the room. People lean toward them without even realizing it. Silence becomes the invisible hand guiding the rhythm of every interaction. I remember once sitting in a meeting where tension hung thick like humidity before a storm. Everyone waited for someone else to speak, to release them from the discomfort. One person finally exhaled too loudly, then began rambling, words spilling out faster than thought. In that moment, I realized the truth the Stoics lived by. Silence exposes what noise tries to hide. When you hold your stillness, others reveal themselves. Their insecurities pour out. Their overconfidence cracks. Their true motives slip through the seams. Not because you manipulated them, but because you refuse to shield them from their own impulses. From here, feel how silence reshapes the entire dynamic of a conversation. Most people mistake stillness for hesitation. They rush in to claim space, thinking the first to speak is the strongest. But, as the old Roman merchants used to say, those who speak first often lose the bargain. When someone cannot sit with a pause, that pause becomes a mirror, reflecting their impatience, their doubt, their need to be validated. The Stoics did not chase validation. They guarded their inner citadel. Silence was one of their gates. At this stage, ask yourself honestly, in your last conversation, did you speak to be heard, or did you speak to avoid being misunderstood? Did you talk because you had something worthy to say, or because the quiet made you feel exposed? It's a hard question, but a necessary one. Even the sharp-minded often talk too much. They rush their points. They justify. They defend. They use words like shields rather than tools. Yet presence, true presence, requires no rush. It doesn't need a shield. It stands. Let's step deeper. Try this small practice. Pause 2 seconds before responding. Just 2. They will feel like an eternity. Your pulse may rise. Your mind may shout, "Say something." But hold the line. Watch what happens in the other person's eyes. Watch their shoulders shift, their breath change. They will reveal more in those seconds than they ever would with their words. And all you did was pause. That is not passivity. That is disciplined stillness. Seneca once wrote that the greatest victories are the ones won within. Mastering silence is one of those victories. This is where the beauty of silence unfolds. When you stop worrying about what you'll say next, your attention sharpens. You hear the tremor beneath someone's confidence. You notice the sudden tightness in their jaw when a certain name is mentioned. You sense the moment their story turns from truth to performance. You start reading not their sentences, but their patterns. And patterns never lie. They tell you what someone wants, what they fear, what they are trying to hide. But you can only read them in quiet. Noise blinds you. Silence reveals. Now imagine your words as notes in a song. Without space between the notes, the song becomes chaos. But with pauses, rhythm emerges, weight emerges, meaning emerges. If you talk non-stop, people stop listening. But if you speak with intention, letting your words land before moving on, they echo. They carry, they linger in the mind of the person across from you long after the conversation ends. You don't need to raise your voice. You simply need to know when to stop. Here is the warning you must carry with you. Silence will unsettle people, especially those who thrive on chaos or expect you to rush to appease them. They may call you cold, arrogant, hard to read. Let them. Their discomfort is proof that your silence is doing exactly what silence is meant to do, breaking old patterns, shifting the balance, rewriting the terms of engagement. Because silence, used with purpose, is restraint turned into strength. From here, you begin to understand the essence of Stoic influence. Not to overpower, but to outlast. Not to shout, but to stand firm. Use silence not as a weapon to wound, but as a blade to cut through confusion. Let others spill themselves into the space you create. Let your stillness speak the confidence you don't need to announce. Your pause says you are certain. Your quiet says you are anchored. Your restraint says you are in command of yourself, and therefore in command of the moment. And as you learn to wield silence with intention, you prepare yourself for the final movement, the art of anticipating life before it arrives. The skill that ensures you remain unmoved no matter what enters the room next. Let's continue. Advancing to this final chapter, imagine the quiet hum beneath your daily life, a rhythm so steady you no longer notice it, like the faint ticking of a distant clock that has always been there, but rarely heard. Yet that hum shapes everything. The choices you make without thinking, the habits you repeat without question, the people you trust without examining. It is the unseen pulse of your world, and once you learn to hear it, nothing looks random anymore. Now imagine pausing long enough to sense that pulse, to feel the subtle patterns that have always been guiding you, unnoticed yet ever present. This is where perception shifts. This is where advantage begins. There is something unfolding around you right now, quietly and consistently, not because it hides from you, but because you move too fast to see it. Slow down, and suddenly the world rearranges itself. The chaos you once feared becomes a landscape of predictable lines and repetitions. People rarely act without pattern. Their words echo their desires, their routines reveal their comfort, their reactions expose their fears. Once you develop the eye for it, life stops being a guessing game. You begin to read it the way a seasoned sailor reads the wind, not by waiting for the storm, but by sensing the subtle shift in air before it breaks. The Stoics lived by this. They believed nature itself spoke in patterns, and to understand those patterns was to understand human behavior. Here's where the story sharpens. Picture someone who buys the same coffee every morning. It looks like preference, but beneath it lies ritual, familiarity, the calm of certainty in an uncertain world. Offer them that same drink one day, and you're not giving them caffeine. You're speaking their inner language. You're aligning with the rhythm they've already written. That alignment softens people, not because you've manipulated them, but because you've paid attention. Observation is respect disguised as awareness. And awareness is leverage, but only if wielded with character. I once watched a negotiation unfold between two men, one loud, decorated with titles, soaked in his own confidence, the other quiet, patient, almost too still. At one point, the loud man casually mentioned that he hated being second in anything, even a conversation. It was a passing comment, tossed aside like a pebble, but the quiet man caught it. Hours later, at the moment of decision, he framed the offer as first, last, and exclusive. The loud man accepted instantly, thinking he had won, but he hadn't. The other man hadn't overpowered him, he had outread him. One subtle pattern, one quiet observation. That was all it took. This is where the Stoic warning enters. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." In the context of understanding people, it means this: use what you see to guide, not to deceive. Patterns grant power, but power without virtue becomes poison. Awareness is not a tool for domination, it is a responsibility. To see someone clearly is to hold a mirror to their truth, not bend it for your advantage. Precision must serve principle. Character must shape strategy. A person who reads patterns without honor becomes a threat to others and a danger to themselves. But a person who reads with integrity becomes a leader. Now imagine being able to enter any interaction already aware of the conversation beneath the conversation. There is a saying among experienced merchants: step into the current already flowing through another person's mind. But most never do. They react too quickly. They guess. They assume. They talk over the signals instead of listening to them. The Stoic who stands 3 moves ahead isn't gifted. He is observant. He notices the repetition no one else sees, the hesitation others ignore, the habit others overlook. He sees the board before the pieces move, because he has learned to watch the rhythm before he steps into the dance. From here, consider how many signals you've missed simply because you were distracted by noise, your own emotions, your assumptions, your desire to be right. Every glance tells a story. Every pause is a clue. Every overreaction is a confession. These things aren't hidden, they're repeated, and the world becomes transparent to the one who knows how to read repetition. Once you learn this, you begin to live in a different world. Not above others, but ahead. Not louder, but steadier. While others chase attention, you chase comprehension. While they panic, you remain grounded. While they react, you anticipate. This is where the concept of becoming untouchable takes shape. Not because you fight harder, but because you see clearer. When life throws noise your way, you hear the underlying beat. When people try to confuse you, you notice the inconsistencies they didn't mean to reveal. When situations grow chaotic, you stand firm because you know chaos itself follows a pattern. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often that nature moves in cycles. Seasons, emotions, conflicts, they all return in form, if not in exact shape. When you understand cycles, you stop being surprised. And when you stop being surprised, you stop being shaken. I remember once observing a conflict between 2 co-workers. One erupted with noise, grand gestures, accusations, frustration thrown like sparks. The other remained still, watching carefully. While everyone else reacted to volume, he paid attention to repetition. He noticed the same complaint hidden beneath every outburst, the same insecurity wrapped in different words. And instead of responding to the noise, he responded to the pattern. The conflict dissolved, not because he dominated, but because he understood the real rhythm beneath the chaos. That is quiet power. That is Stoic power. At this stage, you begin to understand that every situation has a hidden structure, patterns in behavior, patterns in speech, patterns in fear, patterns in desire. Observation becomes a map, and with that map, you navigate life not as a wanderer, but as someone who sees paths others overlook. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to push to be respected. You don't need to chase to stay ahead. You simply follow the rhythm no one else noticed. And from here, the truth becomes undeniable. To outsmart without being seen is not to hide. It is to see, to understand, to anticipate, to move with deliberate calm. Quiet power does not announce itself. It does not need applause. It breathes. It endures. It prevails. While others drown in noise, you learn to walk by reading the undercurrent. This is where quiet becomes strength, where awareness becomes strategy, where perception becomes freedom. And it is here, in this understanding of life's unseen rhythm, that your next chapter begins. As we reach this moment together, take a slow breath and let yourself arrive fully. Let the weight of the day loosen its hold. There is a certain clarity that only appears when the mind grows quiet, a clarity that touches something deeper than thought. If what you heard today resonated with that deeper place, trust that feeling. It means you are beginning to see the world in a way most people never pause long enough to notice. It means you are stepping into a form of strength that does not need noise, force, or recognition to exist. Remember that real transformation does not begin with a loud breakthrough. It begins quietly, in the moments when you realize you no longer want to move through life the way you used to. When you choose awareness instead of impulse. When you decide that presence matters more than performance. When you learn that reading the world requires stillness and influence grows from understanding rather than effort. Carry these insights with you. Let them guide the way you observe people, the way you respond to tension, the way you protect your peace, and the way you choose your next step. Quiet strength is not passive, it is deliberate. It is the kind of strength that allows you to hear what others miss and to stand firm when others fold. It is a strength that grows each time you choose calm over chaos and intention over reaction. If this message awakened something within you, share that intention with a simple comment. Silent power. Let it be a small reminder to yourself that you are choosing clarity, depth, and steady focus. And if you feel ready to continue this path of awareness and inner discipline, you can subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as a gentle commitment to keep sharpening your mind and cultivating the kind of presence that quietly shapes the world around you. Before we part, hold on to this truth. You are capable of more calm strength than you imagine. You can learn to see patterns hidden beneath the surface. You can walk through challenges with an inner stillness that protects you from noise. What begins here can change the way you think, act, and lead. Stay attentive, stay grounded, and I will see you in the next video, where we take this journey even deeper into the art of moving with quiet, undeniable power.